Hey there. Ever wonder how a tiny startup can suddenly handle millions of users overnight without crashing? Or how massive online games stay online? Well, a huge piece of that puzzle is a service called Amazon EC2. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this absolute cornerstone of cloud computing. We'll break it down so you get not just what it is, but why it's such a game changer.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll cover the basics. What even is EC2? Then, we'll put on our architect hats and figure out how to choose the right virtual server. After that, we'll check out the coolest features, get smart about how the pricing works, and finally wrap it all up with the one big idea you need to remember.
All right, let's dive right in. What is Amazon EC2? You know, the easiest way to think about it is like shifting from owning a physical house to renting a super flexible, super powerful apartment up in the cloud.
See, back in the day, if you wanted to launch a website or an app, you had to go out and buy a physical server. We're talking a huge upfront cost, the constant headache of maintaining it, and if your app suddenly blew up, tough luck, you were stuck. The new way, with EC2, just completely flips the script. You only pay for what you use, you never have to worry about the hardware, and you can scale up or down in just minutes. It's a total paradigm shift.
So to give it its proper name, EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. And the two most important words there are elastic and compute. Elastic because it can stretch and shrink to meet your needs, and compute because it's raw processing power. You're basically renting a virtual server, giving you all the control without any of the physical mess.
Okay, so you're ready to rent your cloud apartment. Now comes the big question, which one do you pick? Just like with actual apartments, there is no one-size-fits-all. And that's where we get into something called instance types.
I mean, you wouldn't rent a 5-bedroom house if you just needed a studio, right? EC2 is the exact same idea. You've got options designed for specific jobs. General-purpose instances, those are your all-rounders, great for everyday apps. Compute-optimized are the muscle cars of the group, pure processing power for things like gaming servers. Memory-optimized instances are for when you're crunching huge amounts of data. Storage-optimized are all about lightning-fast access to files, perfect for big databases. And then you have accelerated computing, which uses specialized gear like GPUs for the really heavy lifting, like machine learning. The key here is that picking the right one is your first and best way to make sure you're not wasting a dime.
All right, so you've picked out your perfect apartment, but what about the building's amenities? Because EC2 comes with some seriously amazing features that are going to make your life so much easier.
First up, load balancing. Okay, imagine your apartment building has a whole bank of super smart elevators. When a huge crowd shows up in the lobby, the elevators all work together to make sure nobody waits too long and no single elevator gets totally swamped. That is exactly what a load balancer does for your website. It spreads all the incoming traffic across your servers so everything stays fast and reliable.
And then there's its partner in crime, auto-scaling. This is like having a magic wall in your apartment. If you're throwing a huge party, the wall automatically moves to give you more space. As soon as your guests leave, it shrinks right back so you're not paying for a giant empty room. Autoscaling does this with your servers. It adds more when traffic spikes and then gets rid of them when things quiet down. It's incredible.
And the real magic is how these two work together. They create this intelligent system that's always on, always performing well, and always making sure you only pay for exactly what you need right when you need it. It's efficiency and reliability just built right in.
Okay, now for the question on everybody's mind. How much does this all cost? Let's talk about the money. The best way to understand the pricing models is to think of them as different kinds of lease agreements for your cloud apartment.
So how does the payment actually work? Well, AWS gives you a few different options, and each one is built for a different kind of situation. Let's break down these lease agreements. On Demand is your no-commitment, pay-by-the-hour plan. It's super flexible, perfect for when you have no idea what your traffic will look like. Reserved instances are like signing a 1- or 3-year lease. You commit upfront, and in return, you get a massive discount. This is for your steady, predictable apps. Spot instances are the wild card. You bid on Amazon's spare capacity for rock-bottom prices. But, and this is a big but, they can take it back with little warning. Finally, you've got savings plans, which are kind of a flexible, long-term lease, giving you big discounts with more freedom to change things up. And this is why it pays to know your options. I mean, look at that number. If you know your application is going to be running for a while, you can save up to 75% just by choosing a reserved instance over on demand. That is a huge, huge deal. So, after all that, what's the one big thing you should take away from all this? If you remember nothing else, remember this. It's all about power and control. Let's just quickly recap. EC2 is this incredibly scalable solution for 3 key reasons. 1, there's a huge menu of instance types, so you can always find the perfect tool for the job. 2, it has amazing features like load balancing and auto-scaling baked right in, so your apps are reliable from day one. And 3, the pricing is super flexible, which means you only pay for the compute you actually use.
And honestly, this quote really says it all. EC2 is all about empowerment. It gives you, the user, total control over your computing power. But it takes away all the pain and all the cost of actually dealing with physical servers. It's the best of both worlds.
And that kind of brings us to the final, most exciting thought. This technology we've been talking about, it means that anyone, one person in a garage, a small business, a giant company, can now access the kind of computing power that used to be science fiction. So the question isn't if you can build your next big idea. The question is, now that you can literally rent a supercomputer by the second, what will you build?